Welcome to the Stormsurf video surf forecast for the week starting Sunday, April 2nd. Looking at significant wave heights for the North Pacific Ocean, we see a small gale in the Gulf of Alaska producing in 27-foot seas, aimed somewhat at the U.S. West Coast, and a bit of fetch. It's really associated with high pressure, wind waves off the California coast, and a secondary fetch associated with the gale in the Gulf, not doing a whole lot yet. Let's get into the details. We'll start our tour off looking at jet stream level winds. These winds up about 30,000 feet help support the formation of gales, and when those gales form, help direct their track. We're looking for a trough, a dip in the jet, sort of like this dip right here. That helps form a counterclockwise flow aloft. Just imagine it like a river. You get a little eddy going there, counterclockwise flow aloft and down at the surface. That's the hallmark of low pressure. And of course, low pressure generates wind. Winds generate seas. Seas, as they radiate away from the fetch area, generate swell. And swell, of course, makes waves when it arrives at your beach. There's also a secondary trough here in the Gulf of Alaska. This is probably the one of most interest. Also notice the jet is consolidated, pushing off Japan, winds to 190 knots, pushing just over the date line, then weakening. There's some inference of a split here right on the date line, but still, the northern branch looks pretty healthy, and as we said, there's a trough there, and almost a trough trying to work its way into Vancouver Island. Put this into motion. Notice the stronger winds start pushing into the Gulf of Alaska on Monday, digging this trough out more. Still a bit of a trough here off Japan. Just watch this trough in the Gulf build, being fed. Notice winds build again on the dateline to just barely 190 knots, feeding the trough in the Gulf again as we get into Wednesday. It just sort of continues into Friday. Notice wind energy starts dissipating here over Japan, and the jet starts splitting some as we get later into the work week. Still, a new trough develops on Friday night, pushing in, and it's the axis of this trough. So watch it here as it comes over California relative to snow. South of the trough, warmer temperatures. North of where the max winds are, cooler temperatures. That pushes in on Saturday into the Sierra and down the Sierra. Nice little trough there. Another trough starts developing on the date line on late Saturday night. Pretty pinched, though. Still, maybe something could form from that. And then we get 180 hours out. Notice the jet splits back at Japan. Kind of this very wavy pattern with a lot of energy dangling down to the south here. Not as cohesive. So perhaps the next week is going to be the peak of whatever we're going to get of this current run of storm activity. Let's go take a look down at the surface. So here we go. As expected, a gale low is in the Gulf of Alaska, 45-knot winds. Very small area, though. High pressure off the U.S. West Coast, ridging into the Pacific Northwest, forming the usual pressure gradient. Lower pressure inland, higher pressure over the ocean. Tightens the isobars up, produces north winds, 30 knots here. Wind swell being generated along the California coast. Also note there is swell, longer period swell from a previous gale that was over the date line, hitting the north and central California coast. Pure swell, 7 to 8 feet at 17, maybe 18 seconds. At least that's what it looked like on the buoy. Not quite as big. It appeared in the ocean as what the buoy said, but still pretty solid nonetheless. Also notice secondary low pressure developing here over the dateline, small area 30-knot winds, just starting to get some traction. But notice this secondary fetch is really getting absorbed into the main fetch. We're into Monday here, 40-knot winds in the Gulf. The two systems sort of becoming co-joined. Broad fetch developing on Tuesday of 30-knot winds targeting the U.S. West Coast and specifically the Pacific Northwest down to maybe Point Conception, kind of a north swell angle for Southern California. New fetch develops on the date line on Tuesday night, small little area, kind of dissipates, races east, then redevelops on Thursday off California, 35-knot winds. Not so much a swell producer, though it can produce swell. But again, remember the trough that was setting up here, probably a weather producer for California. Here we get into Friday, all 40-knot winds right off the San Francisco coast. Certainly weather indeed. Continued pretty stormy looking pattern for the coast into Saturday. High pressure building offshore north of Hawaii. Continues north winds along the California coast. And remember that steep trough developing here over the dateline on Sunday. It tries to get some traction. We see low pressure developing there with 50-knot northwest winds. Now, this is aimed a little bit east of Hawaii. Maybe for Northern California, hard to say. This is 180 hours out. Looks pretty healthy, though, indeed. Maybe some swell could result from that. Let's go take a look at the wave models. So here we go. Significant wave heights for the North Pacific Ocean. Our forecast, our small gale here, 28-foot seas. Yeah, probably more like 27. Maybe one Grib square has 28-foot seas, but it builds up to 32 feet come Sunday night into Monday, fading out from 30 feet. Some swell to result from that for sure. And then secondary fetch generating 18 to 20-foot seas, a broader area of 20-foot seas into Tuesday night, targeting the U.S. West Coast well again. Sideband energy for Hawaii. That continues but starts fading Wednesday morning. Next gale sets up on the dateline, very small area, 20-foot seas. Maybe some 13-second period swell for Hawaii, but nothing huge. Then this system starts generating seas off California Thursday night into Friday in the 22 to almost 24-foot range, but right by the coast, meaning very, very raw swell conditions. Only protected breaks might be rideable. And then we start eyeing this system here that's expected over the dateline on Sunday. And at 180 hours out, we have 34-foot seas, 35-foot seas over a tiny area, something to watch. So, still some swell production potential in the North Pacific. Also doing a quick inspection of the southern hemi, and we're going back in time, Thursday the 30th of March. Small system developed southeast of New Zealand, barely 30-foot seas over just a pinpoint of an area. But watch this, it built a little bit, but then it started lifting northeast with 33, actually we'll go back here, that was 34-foot seas. Starts lifting northeast and into Sunday, and then starts fading with seas down to 27 feet into the 18Z time frame. It's not huge seas, but lifting well to the north and covering a pretty good area. That's certainly good for some 15, maybe 16-second period swell pushing north. And in the swell window, certainly for Tahiti, a little bit for Hawaii. Where's Hawaii? Like 155 or so, 158. Probably we'll just roll this back. There you go. Right. So that's barely in the swell window for Hawaii. Mainly Tahiti and mainly California down into Central America is the expected target. Then we'll just take a quick look at the forecast for the coming 7 days for the southern hemi. This system that we were just talking about fades out, and things kind of settle down for a little bit. Now, another system is forecast to develop south of New Zealand. Now, not till Friday, so that's a week out. Hardly believable. 38-foot seas over a small area. And again, notice it's moving east, not northeast. It's that preferred northeast direction or even north direction that really pushes swell up into our forecast area. East direction focuses more on Peru and Chile, and that's pretty much what this is doing. Still, sideband swell can result. It's just not the optimum setup. And then that's it. But you definitely see more activity in the southern hemisphere. The northern hemisphere still trying to keep it together, but starting to lose some of its edge. We're getting, we're into spring now, so that's not unexpected. Also, we want to show you something new that we added. Go to the model section, click models. This is the wave model section in there. And you go down here, a new square here, and we'll just do this. We'll say the North Pacific. And what you get here is 3-hour increments instead of 6-hour increments. So if you really want to drill in and see all the little details, the data's here for both northern hemi, southern hemi, all the major oceans, just the significant wave heights. But if you want to drill in, it's there. Something to enjoy. Also, JSON2 data is back online. It was down for about 2 weeks since about the 15th of March. Of course, this was not anything to do with our site. We talked to NOAA. NOAA said the actual satellite itself was taken offline. There was something going on with it. They had to shut it down for a while. They brought it back up maybe 2 days ago or so. And sure enough, as soon as they brought it back up, the data we were able to pick it up, start mapping it. Also, the good news is in our conversation with NOAA, the Jason 3 satellite is in orbit, and that data is available. And we might start playing with that and maybe try to find a way to work it into so we'll have 2 satellite coverages instead of just 1. But that might be more of a summer project than anything immediate. And of course, we would be remiss if we didn't start to discuss precipitation, and specifically snow. And the reason we're doing this, you go, well, it doesn't certainly seem like there's going to be any snow. All that's over for the year. Well, guess again, it is not. Notice the big Gulf low system come about Thursday starts pushing rain towards the California coast. By Friday, full-on low, nestled right up against along the coast. A lot of wind. Water starts moving in. That's precipitation, liquid precipitation. But then we start seeing snow building, higher elevations on Friday. And by Friday night, full snow into the Sierra will roll through this. And you can just see snow, snow, snow into Sunday. It sort of breaks up and then another pulse into Monday. Let's get into some of the details there. And here's our GFS snow model. We'll just run this out. This is for the Tahoe region. You can go look on the site to look at other locations. I'm sure. And here we go. Friday, 5 a.m. Snow starting to develop. You can count the totals here at your at whatever resort it is you're interested. But really, the snow levels start falling by sometime afternoon on Friday, if you were to believe this. And this looks pretty heavy indeed. I mean, we're talking by Friday night, 15 inches, let's say, at those resorts along the crest. And it continues into Saturday. And by Sunday morning, starts thinning out. By then, we're talking 40 to 45 inches, if that is to be believable. And it doesn't stop. A little bit more into Monday, and then it finally fades out by Tuesday a.m. Again, 40 to 45 inches. So, winter is not done with us quite yet, if one is to believe the models. Let's take a look long-term what's going on, specifically the Madden-Julian Oscillation and El Nino or La Nina, the El Nino Southern Oscillation. So first up, we like to look at the state of the Madden-Julian Oscillation. Of course, in the active phase, that tends to fuel the jet stream, tends to support gale development in the northern hemisphere in winter months. Winds currently over the equator across the Pacific, East Pacific here, West Pacific here, New Guinea here, out of the east, but differences from normal. Difference from normal for this time of year. Notice you have light westerly anomalies in the East Pacific going out to almost 120. And this is having a major influence on weather in Peru right now. Lots of precipitation, lots of rain. It's almost like an El Nino, but it's like a local El Nino. It's not so much Kelvin wave generated El Nino, just trades suppressed, the ocean warming. Also notice Kelvin wave generation area, this area from 135 east to about 170 west, 5 degrees north and south of the equator. The east winds, east anomalies have been blowing nonstop for a month here. We've been waiting for the active phase of the MJO to show up. East anomalies here mean the inactive phase. That hasn't necessarily stopped the jet stream from trying to be active, but now anomalies, as you can plainly see, have pretty much died off, dead neutral. That should help fuel the jet stream, at least for a little while. And you can certainly see that pattern here. This is zonal wind anomalies at 850 millibars, up about 4,200 feet. This is the whole planet on one chart, and time going from 3rd of March towards the present. The date line is here. Kelvin wave generation area, basically between these two tick marks here, the big tick marks. And the purples are easterly anomalies. So you can see this is, it's La Nina constructively enhanced by the inactive phase of the MJO, and it just wouldn't give up and wouldn't give up. Now finally you can see those easterly anomalies are forecast to fade. Still a little bit on the eastern side of the Kelvin wave generation area, but back in here, pretty much a neutral pattern suggestive of the active phase of the MJO finally getting a toe in the door finally expected to feed the jet stream a little bit, maybe build the storm track some. And in fact, there's swell in the water right now. Part of that is the development of the active phase of the MJO in the West Pacific and getting a little bit more traction to the east over the coming week. Looking at different MJO models, this is the statistic model. If you see yellows like this, that means less cloud cover, more sunlight reflectivity off the ocean surface, meaning high pressure, meaning the inactive phase of the MJO. So the statistic model, though, says basically dead neutral or just barely weak inactive phase. The dynamic model suggests dead neutral. Now in the atmosphere, there's still this La Nina thing going on. It's a big boat. La Nina doesn't shut off, though. Even in the ocean, we've been talking about this. The ocean really has really nothing left of La Nina, but in the atmosphere, it's still there for a little bit. It should be fading, but so the active phase of the MJO may be trying to push into the Pacific, but it's still sort of fighting the remainder of La Nina, and so it sort of washes out, and it just looks like a neutral pattern from a outgoing long wave radiation perspective. Looking at phase diagram charts, these are trying to pinpoint where the active phase of the MJO is and what it's doing. Assume you're looking down on the North Pole. The MJO goes from west to east, from the Indian Ocean over the maritime continent, over the dateline West Pacific, under the U.S., across the Atlantic, on the equator, north of Africa, back to the Indian Ocean. The big dot is where the active phase of the MJO is. If it's inside this circle, it's considered extremely weak. But notice here, the ECMF model hints at 2 weeks out, the active phase is trying to build a little bit, trying to get some legs into the West Pacific. The GEFS model says no go, all very weak, not a whole lot going on. But at least this is more promising than what we've been seeing for the past 2 to 3 weeks. The upper level precipitation model, that's what we'll call it, the greens suggest areas favorable for precipitation, which it sort of correlates, or roughly correlates, to the active phase of the MJO. This model suggests that the active phase of the MJO is trying to get some legs here, trying to make some headway in the West Pacific, and weakly, very weakly, is to make its way across the Pacific through April 22nd or so, followed by the inactive phase of the MJO through about early May or so, and then another weak active phase after that. But once you get into the May time frame, this really almost has no bearing on storm production. Things are wrapping up and you're in summer mode by then. Then we look at the trusty CFS model. Again, 850 millibar wind anomalies. Here's where we are currently. The Kelvin wave generation area is right down in here. This is the main area, again, we use for monitoring El Nino and the MJO. And the blues are easterly wind anomalies. You can see they're actually showing, if you look very close, just a hint of yellow there, westerly anomalies. Another little pulse of easterly anomalies are forecast through about April 8th or 10th or so. And then after that, supposedly, westerly anomalies take hold, and that means something good. But we'll take a look here first. The MJO. Here's the inactive phase of the MJO. We're over that. Easterly anomalies still holding. Here's the active phase of the MJO. It's been trying to work its way into the Kelvin wave generation area. Maybe we can pull this up here. Nope, not quite. We'll just try to squeeze it in a little bit. There we go. And you can't see it. Anyway, the date line's right here. So the point being, the active phase of the MJO is supposed to start building into the West Pacific and start making good coverage over the Kelvin wave generation area about the 12th of April. And after that, westerly anomalies hold even through a supposed inactive phase of the MJO that's forecast. Why is that? Let's look at the low-pass filter, and you can see why. So here's our La Nina thing, the dotted contours, and here is where all the energy is out over in the Indian Ocean, but there's supposed to be a flip-flop that's supposed to occur sometime in, let's say, May 5th or 6th or so. The La Nina is officially supposed to die in the atmosphere, and some sort of El Nino-like pattern is supposed to set up. We're kind of watching this date here, May 20th, that keeps kind of pushing out, and you know, a real El Nino developing seems like kind of a reach, but still, if it happens, even weekly, that's better than La Nina, and we'll take it. So we're interested in the effects of El Nino or La Nina. We've currently been in La Nina in the ocean, West Pacific here, East Pacific here. Depth, the X's are, of course, sensors on the anchors of the TAO buoy array. And as you can see, warm water balled up in the West Pacific, but also making pretty good headway into the East Pacific. Two-part process here. Westerly anomalies trying to die, allowing some water to move off to the east. Easterly anomalies. But also what's going on is the westerly anomalies here off the Peruvian coast and Chile coast have allowed the sun, it's basically suppressed upwelling, allowed the sun to warm the ocean surface, and so you get a buildup of heat over here too. And you can see that pretty clear in the anomaly view. Differences in normal for this time of year. Warm water here, clearly 2 degrees above normal anomalies in the upper ocean. We're not even along the coast here. This is out a good way off the coast. I mean, these anomalies go to, what is that? 160, so a point south of Hawaii. So on the equator, the whole way out to a point south of Hawaii, warmer than normal water. This pocket of -2 degree anomalies is here. It doesn't appear to be making any headway towards the surface, and if anything, might be pushing off to the west. Not of concern at the moment. Another view of that same chart even spells out the picture clearly. Warm water in the west, warm water in the east. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 2 to 3 degrees above normal. And then this cool pocket, this is the remnants of La Nina here, and this is that other subsurface cool pool. Now note, if this is here, warm water can't travel in the form of a Kelvin wave and make it to the east, so there's sort of a blocking pattern set up. Most of this warming, we believe, is attributable to the lack of upwelling along the coast, driven by westerly anomalies. A quick historical look here at upper ocean heat anomalies. Of course, May last year, La Nina set up cool water, West Pacific here, East Pacific here, and that continued into almost Christmas time. Then a warming pattern started developing, as we're all familiar with, and you can see warm water in the west, warm water now in the east, and here's that little cool pocket right there. But still, a pretty more normal distribution of heat. Certainly not La Nina. Kind of in between. We're in what they call the spring unpredictability barrier between March and late May or so. It's really hard to know exactly whether you're going El Nino, La Nina, what you're doing. Though all the consensus generally is we're moving towards a warmer trend, maybe a weak El Nino for the fall. Sea level anomalies, again, strip out all the wind, all the waves, all the tides, and if you have a rise higher than normal, and we're talking like in this area right here, 5 centimeters above normal, that suggests warm water at depth. Warm water, of course, expands and sort of makes the ocean surface rise a little, and this is all part of that warming that's going on off of here, Peru and Chile. This had actually extended continuously, just, was it yesterday, out here. It's broken off, but still, pretty good warming going on here, but nothing that one would say is real El Nino, because if you want El Nino, you want to see that warming go the whole way out in here between 120 west and 170 west, 5 degrees north and south of the equator. That's the official area for monitoring El Nino. We're not seeing warming in that area. So here's the high-res sea surface temperature anomalies. Clearly one can see, what is that, 2¼ degrees or higher, up to 4 degrees in this area here off of Peru. A lot of warming going on. Now notice this little cool pocket just developed. The warming was actually stronger a week or 2 weeks ago. We're sort of going into a down phase here. Same thing here, a little cool pocket developing right here. But notice all this warm temperature getting picked here, getting caught by the trades, pushing off to the east, making it to about 120 or so. And of course, beyond there, sure, it's warmer than normal, maybe, a degree or even two. But so this little cool pocket here, just south of Hawaii, there's Hawaii up there. It bloomed a little bit a couple of days ago, but now it's already in retreat. It'll be interesting to see. All this kind of goes in cycles. It pulses. It goes strong for a week or two, backs off for a little bit. So this is what we're watching. But again, the real area, the El Nino monitoring area, starts here and goes off to the west from there. There is some warming. We'll look at the temperature trend in just a minute, but most of the heating is in what they call the Nino 1.2 area. A lot of noise can happen over here. All kinds of heating can go here, but unless it makes it solidly over here, and we're not sure that that's necessarily going to happen, at least not immediately, then that doesn't push you over into El Nino threshold area. The trend for the past 7 days, clearly warming off of Ecuador to the Galapagos, on out from there, the whole way to a point south of Hawaii. This is all good news. Notice there's cooling now starting to develop along Peru and Chile. We'll see how long that lasts. It's not, now by cooling, that's relatively speaking, because temperatures here were at up to 4 degrees above normal. So even if it backs off to 2 degrees and above normal to show cooling here, that's a cooling trend, but it's still well above normal. So absolute temperatures are really what matters. But you can see things have cooled down just a little bit trend-wise. And of course, the overview here, you can see the very warm temperatures. This is almost showing 5 degrees above normal here off of northern Peru near Ecuador, and the warm water advecting off to the west from there. The remnants of La Nina here from Hawaii, let's say roughly south of Hawaii on over to the date line a little bit there. Also notice here, warm water coming off of California over Hawaii the whole way here. Cool water here. This is pretty normal. You see the storm track moving across here. Storms create a lot of upwelling, cooling temperatures off. If you have a positive PDO, you'll want to see warming stay along here. And right now, that appears to be the case. Also notice a lot of warming coming off of even southern Chile. And this warm pool here is really covering a large area. Interesting. But also notice the rest. The Atlantic is pretty warm too. It'd be interesting to see if we're in a remnant La Nina period with a lot of warm temperature on the intertropical convergence zone north of the equator. It'll be interesting to see what the hurricane season is going to do in the Atlantic. Temperature anomalies in the Nino 1.2 region, that area right there by Peru and Chile and the Galapagos, currently plus 1.331 degrees. It was higher, as we saw it was about 10 days ago or so, and has been quite warm, but things cooling off a little bit. Now in the Nino 3.4 region, that area from 120 west to 170 west, the one that really matters for monitoring El Nino. Now notice back in January, we were in the throes of La Nina, then boom, things changed somewhere in February, but notice our temperature right now, plus 1/3 of a degree. So that's pretty much normal, It's not till you're consistently 1/2 degree. Where's that? So right around here. You'd have to be steady 1/2 degree or warmer for 3 consecutive 3-month periods, and we're not close to that. So right now, basically a neutral pattern in control of the Nino 3.4 region. So we've talked about the ocean, we've talked about, subsurface ocean, we've talked about the ocean surface, and clearly no signs of La Nina there. What's going on in the atmosphere? Well, we look at the Southern Oscillation Index, difference in pressure between Darwin, Australia, and Tahiti. If this index runs negative for a month or so, that typically suggests the active phase of the MJO. The current reading, minus 10.38. It's only been negative for 4 days. So maybe some signs that we're moving towards the active phase of the MJO. But notice it was all positive readings prior to that, at least for a good long while. The 30-day running average is positive 3.53. But it is falling a little bit, kind of hard to tell. maybe we're starting to move towards the active phase of the MJO. The 90-day running average, suggesting either El Nino or La Nina, dead neutral, minus 1/10 of a point, which is as neutral as you can get. So atmospherically, according to this index, La Nina is gone. But then there's the ESPI, this index. Now this, instead of doing differences in pressure between Darwin and Tahiti, it's absolute rainfall anomalies, and it's showing minus 90, meaning this area is drier than normal. So that still suggests La Niña's in the atmosphere. And honestly, looking at all the other stuff, the inability of the active phase of the MJO to make any significant headroads into the, from the West Pacific eastward, all suggests some sort of a blocking pattern and some sort of remnant thing going on with La Nina and maybe other forms of variability in the atmosphere, but clearly not a strong active phase of the MJO and clearly not any El Nino indicators. Otherwise, this would be positive. We have less than normal rainfall in this area. And finally, the forecast for Nino 3.4 water temperatures. Here we are, basically April 1st. This says our temperature anomalies should be at a 0.5 degree above normal. We're not there. We're down around here somewhere. So this model is running a little bit hot. It'll catch up. This was the last official reading here. This is all projections, but you see the projections going to 0.8 degrees or so, hanging in there through October, and then heading up into 1.25 or 1.3 degrees as we get towards December of this year. That's probably on the high side. A consensus of other models suggests maybe 0.8 to 0.9 of a degree. That still would be El Nino. It'd just be a weaker El Nino. And any kind of El Nino is certainly good for the storm track, both precipitation relative to California and also swell production and the jet stream, et cetera, et cetera. So we got to muddle through another couple of months. The summer is probably going to start off kind of slow too from southern hemi swell-wise. But as we get into the fall, we should be back in business. It's really, at this point, just looking at the ESPI index. As soon as that thing goes and starts getting closer to zero, instead of down at minus 0.9 or whatever it's been, it was up to maybe 0.8 a couple days ago. As soon as that thing returns to more, around zero, then we'll be in a much better place. La Nina is just hanging on, and it will not let go. It just has its hooks in us. So for now, another gale developing in the western Gulf will make some swell. Maybe another gale. Beyond that, the pattern certainly looks relative to California to be stormy. Hawaii better. Trades in effect. 15-knot trades pretty much continuous. High pressure. Kind of normal for this time of year. Nothing stronger, nothing less so either. If El Nino were in play, that tends to suppress trades in the Hawaiian Islands. If La Nina's there, it tends to increase trades in the Hawaiian Islands, and that's what we're seeing. Just a not strongly increased, but just steady 15-knot or so out of the east. Relative to weather and snow for California, one more blast, theoretically setting up for the later part of this week into the weekend. And then beyond that, we're waiting for the active phase of the MJO to try to come in, dislodge La Nina, put it to bed finally, and at least get us back to neutral. The ocean certainly thinks we're neutral. All the other indicators are, but it's just hanging on in the atmosphere, won't quite let go. That's actually kind of normal. Then beyond that, perhaps El Nino, and perhaps we're watching the positive phase of the PDO. Still, that appears to be the case for right now, but again, we won't know anything till later this year or even next year. But if that trend were to occur, that would be a good thing. That would be more supportive of El Nino and storm production over the next 20 years, but way too early to know any of that. So that's it for this week. We'll do it again next week, same time, same channel. Thanks for watching.